VIP only, bro. You need to step back. The bouncer's hand presses against the man's chest, his voice loud over the thumping bass. Around them, the velvet rope crowd watches, phones already up. The bouncer doesn't know this man is the reason this club exists. He doesn't know he's shoving away the silent owner who signs every single paycheck in the building. And he has no idea this push is about to cost him and the entire security team their jobs on the spot. This is Elysium, one of the city's most exclusive nightclubs. The man being pushed is Marcus Thorne. He built this empire from a single neighborhood bar, but he prefers to watch his venues anonymously to see the real face they show the public. Tonight, that face is a bouncer's hand on his chest, a policy of exclusion played out under purple neon. For Marcus, this isn't just a personal insult. It's proof of a systemic sickness in the nightlife world, one he's heard whispers about for years but has never seen up close. Now, he's decided to stop watching. Marcus Thorne didn't build a nightlife empire by being seen. He built it by watching. From a single struggling bar in a neglected part of the city 20 years ago, he expanded to 12 of the most exclusive venues in the state. His strategy was simple: own the space, hire the best operators, and then disappear into the crowd to see the truth of his own business. He called them his ghost audits. But the truth he was seeing lately was unsettling. Reports filtered up to his holding company, Thorne Nightlife Group, about inconsistencies. A VIP list that seemed to shift depending on who was asking. A dress code enforced more aggressively against certain groups. It was all anecdotal, deniable, the typical noise of a high-volume industry, until Marcus decided to audit his crown jewel, Elysium himself. He chose a Friday night peak hours, dressed in a simple black hoodie, dark jeans, and a single gold chain, an outfit that whispered casual wealth but not the uniform of the bottle service elite. He arrived alone, bypassing the owner's entrance he designed, and took his place at the end of the general admission line. The queue snaked around the block, a mosaic of anticipation and frustration. That's where he first saw the system in motion. The head of security for Elysium was a man named Kyle Jensen, broad-shouldered, shaved head, perpetually scanning the crowd through mirrored aviators even at night. Jensen didn't check IDs at the rope, he conducted interviews. His decisions were swift, final, and seemed to follow an invisible script. A group of young black men in crisp streetwear were told their sneakers weren't up to code. 2 tables over, a group of white men in nearly identical shoes were waved through with a smile. Marcus felt a familiar chill. This was the whispered bias, now playing out in real time under his own roof. He watched Jensen's lieutenant, a younger bouncer named Ben, mirror the boss's demeanor, learning the rhythms of exclusion. When Marcus finally reached the velvet rope, Jensen didn't look at his face. His eyes swept downward from the hoodie to the jeans and his mouth set in a flat line. "VIP list?" Jensen asked, though it wasn't really a question. "Just looking for a drink," Marcus replied, his voice calm. Jensen's thumb jerked toward the end of the line. "General admissions back there. VIP section for bottle service reservations tonight." The lie was smooth. Marcus knew for a fact the VIP area had 20 empty tables held for walk-in high rollers. This is where a normal patron would argue, or plead, or walk away. Marcus simply nodded and melted back into the crowd. But he didn't leave. He used a service alley entrance known only to management and slipped inside, blending into the throbbing mass of the main dance floor. From the shadows, he watched Jensen's kingdom. For an hour, Marcus documented the pattern in his mind. The disproportionate scrutiny, the arbitrary fees. He saw Jensen pull a young woman aside, his hand lingering on her arm as he explained the cover charge was higher for her group. He saw Ben physically corral a patron who'd questioned a charge, steering him toward the exit with a firm grip on his shoulder. The final straw was the champagne. A group celebrating a birthday in a VIP booth ordered 3 bottles of Dom Perignon. Their server, a young man named Leo, presented the check. One of the guests, a black man in his 30s, pointed at the total. "This says 4 bottles. We ordered 3. Leo paled, glancing nervously toward the security podium where Jensen stood. "I'll check on that, sir." Jensen was there in 3 long strides. He plucked the check from the guest's hand. "Price is the price. You got a problem with it, you can settle up and leave." His tone left no room for negotiation. The birthday girl, trying to salvage the evening, handed over a credit card. Jensen took it with a smirk. Marcus had seen enough. The theft, the intimidation, the racialized gatekeeping. It was a corrupt tax on the very experience he'd built his brand on. He moved toward the VIP entrance, not to confront Jensen, but to observe the final barrier up close. That's when Ben, the junior bouncer, spotted him, a man in a hoodie alone approaching the sacred rope. Ben stepped forward, his hand coming up. "VIP only, bro. You need to step back." The push was firm, proprietary, a physical claim of territory. The crowd around them hushed, phones rising like a digital audience. In that moment, Marcus Thorne made a decision. The ghost audit was over. He didn't react to the shove. He didn't raise his voice. He simply looked past Ben, his eyes locking onto Kyle Jensen across the room. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a phone. He dialed a number, put it on speaker, and held it up so the microphone could capture the club's din. A voice answered on the second ring. "Mr. Thorne, everything all right?" It was Miranda Shaw, the chief operating officer of Thorne Nightlife Group. Her voice was clear and sharp through the speaker. "Miranda," Marcus said, his voice cutting through the bass. "I'm at Elysium, at the main VIP rope. I need you to do 2 things right now." Ben's bravado faltered. He recognized the COO's name. He took a half step back. "First," Marcus continued, his eyes still on Jensen, who was now starring, "terminate the entire Elysium security contract with Sentinel Protective Services. Effective immediately. Have corporate security en route to oversee." Jensen's face went slack. Sentinel was his asterisk company, a side business he'd convinced the former general manager to hire. "Second," Marcus said, "lock down all financial records for Elysium for the past 18 months. I want every bottle service receipt, every cover charge log, every VIP list. We're doing a full forensic audit." The club's music pulsed, but around the rope there was silence. Ben's hand, which had pushed Marcus, now hung limp at his side. Jensen began striding over, his face a mask of confusion and dawning horror. Marcus finally looked at the young bouncer. "What's your name?" Ben Carter, sir." "Ben," Marcus said, not unkindly, "you just put your hands on the owner of this building, and you're about to find out that the man who told you to do it," he nodded toward Jensen, now just feet away, "has been stealing from me, from the guests, and from you." Jensen arrived, puffing up his chest. "What the hell is this? Ben, get this guy out of." "Kyle Jensen," Marcus interrupted, his voice dropping to a calm, deadly register. "You're fired. Your company's contract is void. Corporate security is 15 minutes out. You can wait for them or you can leave now. But if you take 1 piece of paper, 1 hard drive, I will have you arrested for theft." The standoff lasted 10 seconds. Jensen's defiance crumpled under the weight of irreversible consequence. He turned and shoved his way through the crowd toward the back office, presumably to try to destroy evidence. Marcus looked back at Ben Carter, the young bouncer who was just following orders, now standing in the ruins of his job. "The police will want a statement," Marcus said, "about the skimmed bottles, the inflated covers, the kickbacks. Tell them everything you know." He then turned to the VIP booth where the birthday party sat, stunned. "Your champagne is on the house tonight, and for the rest of the year." He finally pocketed his phone, where Miranda was already issuing commands on the other end. But as Marcus Thorne stood in the center of the chaos he just unleashed, he knew firing one corrupt security chief wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Jensen was a symptom. The disease was the whole system, the unwritten rules, the profitable prejudices, the silent understanding that some people were simply worth more at the door than others. And Marcus had just discovered that the infection wasn't just at Elysium. It was in the bloodstream of his entire empire. Miranda's text flashed on his screen. Audit initiated. Preliminary flag on 3 other venues. Patterns match. What do you want to do? Marcus typed his reply, the club lights reflecting in his eyes. Burn it all down. Start with the books. The forensic audit of Elysium's books didn't just reveal theft. It exposed a blueprint for discrimination. Miranda Shaw's team worked through the night, and by dawn, they had a spreadsheet that mapped prejudice onto profit margins. The data was cold and irrefutable. On average, Black patrons and other minorities at Elysium were charged a 20% higher premium on bottle service. Cover charges for groups with more than 2 men of color were systematically inflated. The VIP lists, which were supposed to be based on reservation and spend, were manually edited by Kyle Jensen to exclude certain demographics entirely. But the real shock was the scale. Elysium wasn't an outlier. The preliminary flags Miranda mentioned at the venues Chroma, the Vault, and Sky Terrace showed identical patterns. The same manipulated pricing formulas. The same skewed demographic logs. It was a franchise of exclusion, and Marcus Thorne's signature was on the lease for every location. This isn't just a few bad managers, Miranda said, her voice tight over the speakerphone in Marcus's downtown office. Sunlight streamed in, illuminating the skyline he partly owned. This is a coordinated system. The security subcontractors at the other 3 venues, they're all different company names, but they trace back to the same shell corporation. And that corporation lists a single principal owner. Marcus stared at the city, Kyle Jensen. No, Miranda corrected. Someone smarter. Jensen was the operations guy, the enforcer. The owner of record is a lawyer named David Ross. He's never set foot in any of our clubs, according to staff interviews. But his companies have been providing premium security services to 4 Thorne Group properties for the past 3 years, at a total contract value of over $2 million. A lawyer, a middleman. This was organized. Marcus felt the problem metastasize in his mind. It wasn't a cultural sickness anymore. It was a parasitic business model. David Ross's shell company would invoice Thorne Nightlife for legitimate security. Then his on-site team, men like Jensen, would run a shadow operation, skimming from the bar, inflating covers, taking kickbacks from promoters for VIP access, and enforcing a discriminatory door policy to maintain a certain atmosphere that justified the premium prices. They were literally getting paid twice, once by Marcus and once by his own customers. "We need to talk to Ben Carter," Marcus said. "The bouncer from last night, he's the loose thread." Ben Carter was found, not at home, but sitting in a 24-hour diner 3 blocks from Elysium, still in his black security t-shirt, staring into a cold cup of coffee. He looked up as Marcus slid into the booth opposite him. No bodyguard, just a man in a hoodie. "I already gave my statement to corporate security," Ben said, his voice drained. "I'm fired, right?" "Do you want to be?" Marcus asked. Ben's eyes flickered with confusion. "What?" "You put your hands on me. You enforced policies you knew were wrong. But you're also 22 years old and you were taking orders from a man who threatened your job if you questioned him. So I'm asking you, do you want to be part of the problem or do you want to help fix it?" For a full minute, Ben said nothing. Then quietly he began to talk. He described the training. New hires at Sentinel were given a verbal handbook. Certain postcodes on IDs meant extra scrutiny. Specific styles of dress, often associated with Black and Latino youth, were labeled high risk. The goal, Jensen told them, was to curate a clientele that spent freely and didn't cause trouble, a euphemism everyone understood. "He called it atmosphere control," Ben mumbled. "Said it was what the management wanted, that the numbers proved it. Higher spends, fewer incidents." Did he ever mention a David Ross? Marcus asked. Ben shook his head. No, but the money, the skim. It wasn't just Jensen pocketing it. Every Monday a courier would come. Jensen would hand over a sealed envelope. Cash. I thought it was a kickback to someone upstairs in our asterisk management, but maybe it was going upstream to the real boss. The courier was a lead. While Marcus was at the diner, Miranda was executing a corporate blitz. She suspended 4 general managers across the empire, the ones who had approved the Sentinel contracts. She impounded servers and point-of-sale systems. The internal reaction was an earthquake. Panicked texts flew between venue staff. The city's nightlife gossip blogs lit up with rumors. Thorn Group in meltdown. Massive fraud investigation. Feds involved. By noon, the story broke publicly. An investigative reporter from the Asterisk Metro Tribune, tipped off by a leaked audit summary, published the first piece. VIP racism. Leaked data suggests systemic bias at top nightclubs. It named Elysium. It quoted the damning statistics. And it included a single, powerful quote from an anonymous staffer. We were taught to see people as revenue targets or security risks based on their skin color. The public reaction was immediate and furious. Social media erupted. The video of Marcus being shoved, now contextualized with the audit findings, went mega-viral. Protests were organized outside Elysium for that very night. Boycott Thorn trended. Celebrities who had hosted events at the clubs began issuing statements of condemnation. Marcus's phone started ringing with calls from his board of directors. They were investors, not idealists. They saw a plunging valuation and a toxic brand. Their message was unified: contain, apologize, and move on. Fire a few people, issue a diversity initiative, but stop the public autopsy. Then at 2:17 p.m., Marcus received a different kind of call, from a blocked number. A smooth, calm voice greeted him. "Mr. Thorn, David Ross, I believe you've come across my work." Marcus's grip tightened on the phone. "Your work is stealing from me and bigotry in my name." "Strong words," Ross chuckled, unperturbed. "What you've discovered is a series of independent contractor agreements, all above board. Any operational overreach by Mr. Jensen is a personnel matter, not a contractual one. My companies provided a service, elevated security for elevated venues. The methods are regrettable, but the result, increased profitability and decreased liability, speaks for itself." "You're finished in this city," Marcus growled. "Am I?" Ross's tone turned icy. "You've fired a few managers. You've leaked some numbers. But you haven't asked the most important question, Marcus. Why did your own general managers sign my contracts? Why did they look the other way for 3 years?" The line went dead. Ross's final question hung in the air, a venomous seed of doubt. He was right. Jensen was a thug. Ross was a ghost. But the people who let them in the door, they were Marcus's own hires, his trusted operators. Miranda confirmed the suspicion an hour later, her face grim on a video call. "We traced the approvals. All 4 GMs who hired Sentinel reported directly to one person at the corporate office. Your vice president of operations, Mark Shen." Mark Shen, a 10-year veteran of Thorn Group, Marcus's right-hand man, the guy who found the real estate, negotiated the leases, and hired the teams to run them. The architect of the empire's day-to-day machinery. "Bring him in," Marcus said, his voice hollow. But Mark Shen was already gone. His office was cleaned out. His company phone and laptop were wiped and left on his desk. His personal phone was disconnected. Security footage showed him leaving the parking garage at 5 a.m., carrying a single suitcase. The betrayal was a physical blow. This wasn't a passive allowance of corruption. This was active facilitation. Shen had systematically placed a predatory operation at the heart of Marcus's clubs, for a cut of the skim, for a simpler, more profitable business. Marcus didn't know. What he did know from a frantic call from the head of IT was that Shen had one final trick. Before he left, he triggered a ransomware attack on Thorn Group's primary servers. The audit data, the financial records, the employee files, all of it was encrypted. A message flashed on every screen: Data CORRUPTED. For decryption key, contact admin. The admin email was a dead drop. The attack wasn't about money. It was about time. A delay tactic, to bury evidence, to let stories cool, to allow people like David Ross to disappear. Marcus stood in the silenced, blinking server room, the hum of stalled machines the only sound. His empire was under siege from the outside by scandal, and from the inside by sabotage. He had a public demanding justice, a board demanding silence, a fugitive executive, and a ghostly adversary who claimed it was all just good business. He turned to Miranda, whose usual composure was frayed. "We have backups, right? The off-site archives." Miranda nodded slowly. "We do, but Shen designed the backup protocol. He knew the location. He knew the access schedule." The implication was clear. The off-site backup facility, a secure data vault across town, was their last chance at preserving the evidence. And Mark Shen, or someone working for him, would almost certainly be on their way there right now to destroy it. The clock, which had been ticking loudly, now began to scream. The race to the data vault was a silent, speeding panic. Marcus drove, Miranda navigating on her phone, both of them knowing they were probably too late. The backup facility was a nondescript concrete building in an industrial park, its only identifying feature a small logo for Iron Mountain Digital. As they skidded into the parking lot, they saw the first sign of trouble. The main security gate was slightly ajar, its hydraulic arm broken, hanging limp like a wounded limb. A private security guard lay slumped in his booth, unconscious but breathing, a trickle of blood from his temple. He'd been jumped. Miranda called 911 while Marcus sprinted for the entrance. The main door was sealed tight, a biometric and keycard lock that hadn't been breached. The intruder had taken another route. Around the back, a high window leading to the server corridor was shattered. Glass littered the asphalt. Marcus didn't hesitate. He used a dumpster to climb, tore his jacket on the remaining shards, and dropped into a dim, cold hallway. The air hummed with the sound of 1,000 cooling fans. Rows of black server racks stood like tombstones. He heard the sound first, the high-pitched whine of a power drill, then a crash of metal. He followed it to the end of a row. There, a figure in dark clothes and a ski mask was using a crowbar to pry open the faceplate of a specific server cabinet labeled THORNENL Archive 3. "Stop," Marcus shouted. The figure froze, then turned. Not Mark Shen. This person was smaller, leaner. They didn't speak. Instead, they swung the crowbar in a wide, desperate arc. Marcus ducked, the metal whistling past his ear and connecting with a server rack with a deafening clang. Alarms began to blare throughout the facility. Breach alarms, temperature alarms. Red lights strobed. The intruder turned back to the server, yanking at a bundle of cables. Their goal wasn't to steal the drives, it was to physically destroy them. Marcus lunged, grabbing for their arm. A struggle ensued, brief and violent, among the blinking lights and screaming sirens. The mask came partly loose and Marcus caught a glimpse. A young woman, her face etched with terror and determination. Not a professional thug, an employee. He got a hand on the crowbar and wrenched it free. She scrambled back, hitting another rack, then turned and fled down the aisle, disappearing into the maze of servers. Marcus let her go. The data was the priority. He examined the server she'd been attacking. The faceplate was bent, but the drives inside looked intact. He recognized the cabinet. It wasn't just the corporate backup. It was the legal compliance archive, the one that held immutable copies of all financial transactions, required by law to be kept for 7 years. Shen hadn't just wanted to hide the discrimination audit. He wanted to destroy evidence of the money trail. Miranda found him there, police and paramedics in tow. The guard was waking up. The female intruder had escaped out the broken window. The police took statements, but without an ID, there was little to go on. but she had left something behind. Clutched in the guard's hand, pried loose during their struggle, was a key card, not for this facility. It was for the downtown offices of Ross and Associate LLC, David Ross's law firm. The guard, groggy, said she'd flashed it at him, claiming to be there for an emergency audit. He turned to verify the log, and that's when she hit him. Ross wasn't just covering his tracks, he was sending people to erase them, and he was using someone desperate enough to do it. Back at the commandeered conference room that now served as their war room, Marcus and Miranda plugged a clone drive from the archive into a secure laptop. The data was there, uncorrupted. They started with the financials of Sentinel Protective Services and its sister companies. The picture that emerged was not just of skimming and fraud, it was of laundering. David Ross's shell companies weren't just invoicing Thorn Group. They were invoicing a dozen other nightlife and restaurant businesses across the city. All showed the same pattern: inflated contracts with kickbacks flowing back to someone. The money didn't stop with Ross. Following the digital trail, Miranda found a series of layered transfers. Funds moved from Ross's accounts to an offshore holding company, and from there to a domestic private equity firm called Pinnacle Urban Ventures. Marcus knew that name. Pinnacle Urban Ventures was the majority shareholder in Metro Nightlife Consortium, a group that had been aggressively trying to buy out independent club owners for 2 years. They made an offer for Thorn Group 18 months ago. Marcus had refused. "It's a consolidation play," Miranda whispered, the horror dawning. "They weren't just stealing from you, they were weakening you. The discrimination, the fraud, the bad press, it drives down your valuation. It makes your board desperate to sell. And the only buyer willing to take on a toxic asset would be..." "The people who created the toxin," Marcus finished. "Pinnacle. They were funding the corruption through Ross, crippling their competition from the inside, and then buying the damaged goods for pennies on the dollar." His own vice president, Mark Shen, wasn't just a greedy employee. He was a mole. A plant likely recruited years ago to rise within Thorn Group and open the door for this exact attack. The personal betrayal deepened into a corporate assassination plot. The discrimination wasn't an unfortunate side effect. It was a strategic weapon. It generated the kind of social media outrage and legal liability that scared institutional investors. It was a cancer deliberately introduced. Then they found the emails. In a hidden partition, Miranda recovered fragments of Shen's deleted communications. They were to and from a generic encrypted address, but one recovered attachment was a contract, a signing bonus for Mark Shen, paid by Pinnacle Urban Ventures, dated 3 years prior. The bonus was contingent on successful integration of specified vendor partnerships and achievement of operational efficiency targets. The specified vendor was Sentinel. The efficiency target was a 15% reduction in security-related incident reports, a cold, corporate metric achieved by keeping entire demographics out the door. Marcus's phone rang. The board chairman, Robert Alden. His voice was no longer pressuring, it was final. "Marcus, we've called an emergency vote. We're accepting Pinnacle's renewed buyout offer. The terms are on the table. With the scandal and the system sabotage, our hands are tied. It's the only way to salvage value for the shareholders." "Robert, you don't understand. Pinnacle is asterisk the scandal. They orchestrated this." "That's a dramatic claim with no proof our lawyers can see. What we see is a company on fire. The vote is in 1 hour. You should be here." The line went dead. They had the proof, the financial trail, the contract. But it was raw, complex data. It wasn't a simple story. The board, smelling financial ruin, would vote to sell before he could explain. He had 1 hour to stop the sale of his life's work to the people who tried to destroy it. He looked at Miranda, then at the cloned hard drive containing the truth. "We need a bigger megaphone." Miranda nodded. "The protest. It's happening right now outside Elysium. Hundreds of people, live streams. Every major news station is there." It was a terrifying all-or-nothing gamble. Take the complex. damning evidence public in the rawest, most unfiltered way possible. Show the crowd and the cameras not just the racist door policy, but the financial conspiracy behind it. Turn the protest against the clubs into a weapon against the real architects. Get me everything that connects Ross to Pinnacle, the transfers, the contract, put it on a tablet, and call Ben Carter, Marcus said, grabbing his jacket. Tell him to meet me at Elysium. He wanted to help fix it. It's time. As they sped back toward the city center, Marcus's phone buzzed with a new message. From the same blocked number, David Ross. A valiant effort, Mr. Thorne, but the board will vote. The company will sell. A quiet retirement is still an option. Take it. Or when we own you, the first thing we'll do is sue you for defamation and breach of fiduciary duty for this little stunt. You'll be unemployable. You'll lose everything twice over. Marcus didn't reply. He looked out at the city streets. He was no longer trying to save his empire. He was preparing to burn it down himself, to light a fire so bright it would expose every rat hiding in the walls. The protest crowd was his match. The evidence on the tablet was the fuel, and in 1 hour he would either spark a reckoning or be consumed by the flames. The crowd outside Elysium wasn't just angry. It was a live wire of raw energy, and Marcus Thorne walked directly toward it. News vans lined the street, their satellite dishes aimed at the sky. Chants of no justice, no peace, and shut it down rolled over the flashing police lights. At the center, a makeshift stage had been erected from pallets and plywood. A community organizer with a bullhorn was detailing the leaked audit findings. Marcus didn't head for the stage. He headed for the source of the electricity. He found Ben Carter at the edge of the crowd, looking overwhelmed. "You have a loud voice," Marcus asked. Ben nodded, uncertain. "Good, follow me." Marcus pushed through the crowd, people recognizing him from the viral video, their shouts of anger melting into confusion. He reached the organizer, a woman named Tasha Reed, and spoke quickly in her ear. Her eyes widened, then narrowed with skeptical intensity. She listened for 30 seconds, then handed him the bullhorn. The feedback squealed as Marcus switched it on. The crowd's attention snapped to him. "My name is Marcus Thorne. I own this building. And for the past 3 years, I've been robbed. But more importantly, you've been robbed. Robbed of your dignity, your money, and your right to a fair night out." He held up the tablet, turning it to face the nearest news camera. "This is the theft. These are the numbers showing how much more you were charged based on what you look like." He scrolled. "But this," he said, pulling up a new screen, "is the who. This is David Ross, a lawyer. His companies ran the security that pushed you around. And this is where your money went after it was stolen from you." He displayed the financial trail, from Ross's shell companies to the offshore account to Pinnacle Urban Ventures. Pinnacle is a private equity firm. For 2 years, they've been trying to buy my company. And for 3 years, they've been funding the corruption inside it to make it cheap enough to buy. Their mole was my vice president, Mark Shen. He sabotaged our servers an hour ago to hide this. The crowd's fury began to pivot, turning outward from the club to the shadowy figures behind it. Marcus then pulled up the recovered contract. Mark Shen's signing bonus from Pinnacle, contingent on vendor integration. They didn't just let discrimination happen. They paid for it. It was a business strategy, a way to poison my company and then sell me the cure. At that moment, Miranda's text flashed on his other phone. Board meeting started. Livestream link active. They were watching. They had to be. Marcus turned to Ben Carter, handing him the bullhorn. "Tell them what you told me, what they taught you to see." Ben's hand shook as he took it. He cleared his throat, his voice cracking at first, then it steadied. "They gave us a list, not on paper, but a list. Certain neighborhoods on your ID, you got extra hospitality. Certain clothes, certain groups, we were told you were atmosphere risks, that you wouldn't spend or you'd cause trouble. My boss, Kyle Jensen, said it was what management wanted, that it was just good business." He looked at the crowd at the phones recording him. "I'm sorry, I was wrong. It wasn't business. It was hate, and they dressed it up in a security uniform." The testimony was human, simple and devastating. It confirmed the cold data with warm, terrible truth. Across town in the plush boardroom, the live stream played on the large screen. Robert Alden, the chairman, watched, his face ashen. The other board members shifted in their seats. The lawyer for Pinnacle Urban Ventures, present to finalize the sale, stood up. This is a desperate theatric. It proves nothing. The vote must proceed. But the mood had fractured. A board member, an older woman named Alina Graves, spoke. It proves we are about to sell the company to the entity accused of vandalizing it. That is an unacceptable fiduciary risk. I move to postpone the vote indefinitely pending a full independent investigation. A second board member seconded the motion. The Pinnacle lawyer objected vehemently, but the tide had turned. The visual of the protest, the clear evidence on the tablet, the raw confession, it was too much to ignore. Robert Alden, seeing the liability nightmare unfolding, called the question. The motion to postpone passed. The sale was dead. Back at the protest, Marcus's phone rang. It was Robert. The vote is postponed. The deal is off. Now, for God's sake, get a handle on this. But Marcus wasn't looking for a handle. He was looking for a reckoning. He took the bullhorn back. The board has stopped the sale to Pinnacle, but that's the beginning, not the end. He then made a series of announcements, each one a seismic shift. First, effective immediately, Thorn Nightlife Group is terminating all contracts with any security vendor associated with David Ross. A new, independent security firm, co-designed with community leaders, will take over at all venues next week. Second, we are establishing a restitution fund. If you have a receipt, a photo, or a credible story of being overcharged or denied entry based on discriminatory practices at any of our clubs, we will refund you double what you were wrongfully charged. No questions, no lawyers. Third, I am inviting the State Attorney General's office and the city's Human Rights Commission to conduct a full, transparent audit of all our operations, with full access. Their report will be made public. The crowd's energy shifted again, from destructive rage to stunned, cautious hope. It was more than an apology. It was a blueprint for accountability. The consequences unfolded like dominoes over the next 72 hours. The Attorney General announced a formal investigation into Pinnacle Urban Ventures and David Ross for racketeering and conspiracy. The financial trail Marcus exposed gave them the roadmap. Federal authorities, interested in the money laundering across state lines, opened a parallel inquiry. David Ross was arrested at his suburban home at dawn, charged with fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering. He offered no statement, his smooth, lawyerly facade gone, replaced by the vacant stare of a man who calculated every risk except this one. Mark Shen was tracked through a credit card purchase in a neighboring state. He was arrested at a highway motel, trying to cross the country with a suitcase full of cash. He immediately began cooperating, offering details on Pinnacle's broader strategy to consolidate the city's nightlife through similar sabotage. And then came the final surprising detail. The woman who attacked the data vault, the desperate employee, she turned herself in. Her name was Chloe. She was a junior accountant at Ross's firm. Ross had discovered she'd been embezzling small amounts to cover her sister's medical debt. Instead of firing her, he owned her. He sent her to destroy the vault, threatening to send her to prison if she refused. Marcus, remembering the terror in her eyes, arranged for her to have her own legal representation. She became a key witness against Ross, her testimony revealing the depth of his manipulation. With the conspiracy exposed and crumbling, Marcus turned to the hardest part, rebuilding. He didn't just hire a new security company. He helped design a new training protocol with sociologists and former civil rights lawyers. The Ghost Audit became a permanent, transparent program. Anonymous community testers would visit venues regularly, with their experiences published in a quarterly report. He made Ben Carter the head of that new community liaison team. The young man who once pushed him away became the face of the new policy, meeting with patron groups, training new staff, his lived experience his greatest credential. The protests dissipated, replaced by a watchful, engaged dialogue. The headlines moved from VIP racism to nightlife reckoning to a model for change. 6 months later, Marcus stood again at the VIP rope at Elysium. The venue had just reopened after a brief renovation. The new head of security, a woman named Anna, nodded at him respectfully. The policy was now displayed clearly on a digital screen. One standard cover charge, one bottle menu price, entry based on capacity and behavior alone. A group approached, young, diverse, dressed to impress. Anna checked IDs, smiled, and unhooked the velvet rope. "Welcome to Elysium. Enjoy your night." Marcus watched them pass, then turned and walked back into the crowd of his own club, anonymous once more. But this time, he wasn't watching for failure. He was witnessing a fragile, hard-won new normal. The system hadn't been perfected, but the corruption had been excised. The silent owner had spoken, and the entire industry had been forced to listen. The story of Elysium is more than one man's confrontation. It's a case study in how corruption hides in plain sight, dressed in the uniform of policy and justified by profit. Marcus Thorne didn't just fire a bad employee. He unraveled an entire ecosystem where discrimination was the product and silence was the currency. What happened in those clubs mirrors a documented, global pattern researchers call velvet rope racism. Studies from Chicago to Glasgow show bouncers systematically denying access or charging more to black patrons, using dress codes as a pretext and biased assumptions about spending as an excuse. Marcus's audit gave a financial blueprint to a social truth many have felt at the door but couldn't prove on a spreadsheet. The deeper revelation was how easily hate can be monetized. David Ross and Pinnacle Ventures didn't invent bigotry, they weaponized it. They saw an exclusionary door policy not as a moral failure, but as a market advantage, a way to create a brand atmosphere and then sell it back at a premium. They turned prejudice into a revenue stream, and for 3 years, the system worked perfectly because everyone who noticed was either profiting, afraid, or simply not looking. Marcus Thorne's power wasn't just his ownership. It was his willingness to look and then to act. He used his position not to protect his empire, but to dismantle the corrupted parts of it. He traded short-term stability for long-term integrity, understanding that some fires need to be lit, not contained. The lingering question is whether there are other David Rosses in other industries. It's whether there are other Marcus Thornes with the courage to audit their own power. Change didn't happen because of a viral video. It happened because the subject of that video had the authority to demand answers and the integrity to follow them, no matter where they led. True accountability isn't just about removing bad actors. It's about redesigning the stage so the play can't go on without them. It's about building systems where transparency is cheaper than corruption and where the community holds the spotlight. The velvet rope remains, but who gets to lift it and why can no longer be a secret kept in the dark. If you found this dive into power, money, and justice compelling, make sure to subscribe. We explore the hidden architectures of everyday life, uncovering the systems that shape our world. Your support helps us tell these crucial stories. Thanks for watching.